Management Group, hosted by Craig Bolanos. Heard Sunday mornings at 10.
This is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560. The Answer.
They got the beat, the campus beat, the campus beat. Yeah, the campus beat.
Dan and Amy, we've got a lot to cover in our latest edition of Campus Beat. Let's start at St. Olaf College in Minnesota, shall we?
Oh, St. Olaf, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The topic, radical fat liberation. The speaker, Sonali Rashatoire, who was invited to provide a 2-hour speech at St. Olaf College's Wellness Center, Women's and Gender Studies Department, and Center for Equity and Inclusion all sponsored this academic. Her Instagram username is the Fat Sex Therapist. She believes that fitness trainers are comparable to Nazis, and children's dieting is comparable to sexual assault. I truly believe that a child cannot consent to being on a diet the same way a child cannot consent to having sex. Tonight we're going to start by talking about how to politicize our definition of body image, she began, because oftentimes we actually get stuck thinking of it from a white supremacist lens. White supremacy happens every day in the little things. We should be critical of the use of science, of course,
Yeah.
and the production of knowledge to continue promoting the idea that certain bodies are fit, able, and desirable. Is it my fatness that causes my high blood pressure, or is it my experience of weight stigma?
I'm going to go with the science on that one and say it's her weight.
Yeah. Well, you
It's
would be
more than
thrown out
likely-
of that lecture.
Yeah. Causing high blood pressure.
Fat phobic is often actually eugenic science. Eugenic science is Nazi science. Quote. 2 hours. All the kids gather around. Radical fat liberation. Important topics to teach critical thinking. Challenging authority. She also suggested that fat phobic science had something to do with the mosque shootings in New Zealand.
Wow. That's a big stretch there.
Quote, I do not think it's surprising that the man who shot up Christchurch, New Zealand was also a fitness instructor. Clear communication, there's still an idealized body. Nazis really love this idea of an idealized body, and so it makes a lot of sense to me that a fitness instructor might also think about an idealized body in this thin white supremacist way. Interesting piece in the Wall Street Journal from college students. Op-ed, what college isn't teaching you, what your college isn't teaching. Undergrads talking about their real-time experience at their university of choice. Excerpts. IKEA gives more direction, said Wynn Bartlett, a Texas A&M undergrad in finance. We force undergraduates to take plenty of entry-level classes, but where's the one on practical financial responsibility? How about a test on setting a budget? My concern extends to my classmates on the less quantitative side of campus, but even as a finance major, I could benefit from this sort of education. My coursework deals with hypothetical $100 million bond issues, but this doesn't help me figure out how to negotiate my credit limit or how much of my income I should be comfortable spending on rent. Ashton Davis at Texas Tech University, law student. True inclusion isn't skin deep. My law school constantly preaches the importance of inclusion, tolerance, and acceptance. I don't disagree. These are fundamental to any healthy professional environment. But there's an undeniable irony in watching some administrators, professors, and students promote physical diversity while bashing any opinion that departs from orthodoxy. If universities don't welcome other points of view, their diversity will remain artificial and shallow. Oh, boy. And you'll have to endure 2-hour lectures about alleged Nazi fat-phobic science. Whew.
But she's a real looker.
Land.
I'm shaming her.
Well, I mean, it's sad what's happened to liberal arts education, and by extension, what's happened to higher education. And this brings us to our piece, the City Journal, Inside the Academic Destruction of the University of Tulsa. It's sort of a case study, a detailed case study of what's happening, I think, on a lot of college campuses that we tackle anecdotally. But it's great to get an insider's look. And to help us do that, we're pleased to be joined by Jacob Howland, who is the McFarland Professor of Philosophy, past chair of the Philosophy Department and Religion, the Philosophy and Religion Department at the University of Tulsa, where he teaches the honors program. Professor Howland, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me on.
So I maybe start at the end of your piece that I read at City Journal, and then you walk us back to how you got here. You talk about Tulsa, the Golden Hurricane, by the way, one of the dozen schools with a nickname that doesn't end in S. A little trivia there for you. You write, TU governors don't understand what a university is, a precious cultural institution whose essential task is the preservation, cultivation, and transmission of knowledge. What you say Tulsa has experienced is a hostile takeover that has made the university a subsidiary of the region's biggest charitable foundation, an agent of the city's corporate interests. Our infantilized and indoctrinated students will receive but a light wash of liberal arts before they're popped from the higher education oven. They will be credentialed, but they will not be educated. So how, over your time in Tulsa, at Tulsa University, did it go from a college that aspired to be in the top 50 in terms of liberal arts education to what you describe it at the end of your piece to be?
Well, I mean, we got a new president about 3 years ago, and we got a new provost a year ago. We have a board of trustees, none of whom has any background in education. They're composed of essentially business leaders. There are very close connections with major corporate interests in Tulsa. For example, the Bank of Oklahoma, which is the trustee of the endowment of our university. A number of members, chief executives and so forth on the Bank of Oklahoma are trustees of our university. Our president is on the Bank of Oklahoma board. You know, he gets about $30,000 a year from that service.
Oh, nice.
The Bank of Oklahoma is owned, 60% of it's owned by George Kaiser, who's also has an $8 billion foundation called the George Kaiser Family Foundation. The provost's husband is the chief executive officer of the George Kaiser Family Foundation, and the foundation's president is the president of the board of trustees. So when I discovered this kind of corporate nexus, I realized that something was going on. Unfortunately, I can't get to the bottom of exactly what sort of deals have been made, but I can say this. President Clancy of TU was chair of the Tulsa Regional Metro Chamber of Commerce in 2011. And at that time, he insisted that we needed to prepare students to take jobs immediately upon graduation from our colleges in the Tulsa economy. And it looks to me like some kind of deal has been forged at the highest levels to turn our school into essentially a kind of vocational, technical university that's going to focus on producing students who are ready for jobs in the Tulsa economy. But what that has involved is eliminating, essentially destroying the liberal arts on our campus. And
how has it done that? Explain.
Well, it's done that. I mean, they set up a program review committee, the Provost's program review committee, that supposedly analyzed academic and financial data. We were told the process would be transparent, inclusive, and data-driven. It was none of these things. All the members signed non-disclosure agreements. By the way, they also all had to read a book by a guy named W.F. Massey, I think. It's called Re-Engineering the University. And one of the things he said in his book is that, quote, the root problem at universities is a deeply held commitment to traditional concepts and values. What this committee sprung on us on April 11th was the elimination of theater, art, dance, philosophy, religion, which is my department, languages. They got rid of French, German, Latin, Greek, Chinese, Russian, biology, chemistry, physics, geology, geosciences. The list goes on. They got rid of 40% of the academic programs at the University of Tulsa.
Yeah, but so as Marco Rubio Rubio, can't speak, Marco Rubio famously inveighed, we need more welders and less philosophers. Colleges need to start being more utilitarian about preparing students for preparing students for the private sector, preparing students to work and make money rather than focusing on, airy considerations of Nietzsche. What's wrong with that approach?
Well, first let me say I'm a big supporter of VOTEC education, technical skills. We need nurses, we need computer scientists, etc. But one of the programs that was, which is really the heart and soul of liberal education at the University of Tulsa, is our honors program. And in this honors program, we teach the Federalist Papers. We teach John Stuart Mill on liberty. We teach the speeches of Lincoln. We also teach the stuff that they read, right? So here's Lincoln. Why is he a great orator? Why is he a great thinker? He didn't go to university, but he read the Bible. Mm-hmm. He read Shakespeare. He read the ancient Greeks. Alexander Hamilton, poor guy, best Secretary of the Treasury we've ever had. Grows up poor on a Caribbean island of Nevis. He's got a couple of books. One is Livy's History of the Roman Republic.
Oh, yeah.
One is Plutarch's Lives, And so when people ask me this question, actually I have two answers. One is, do you think today we might benefit from having an Alexander Hamilton or a Thomas Jefferson or an Abraham Lincoln? And how did they become the great thinkers with their comprehensive vision? Well, they got a traditional education. My second point I want to make is this. This has happened at a lot of schools, okay? Because there are actually consultants going around saying, get rid of the liberal arts, focus on this job training stuff and so forth. It's never happened until now. At a major university, major research university, we were ranked in the 70s in the major research universities in the United States. The list that starts with Harvard and Yale and stuff like this, okay? We have a $1.1 billion endowment. Now, they've been claiming out of both sides of their mouths, oh, this is financial exigency. We need to do this to survive because we're going to have fewer students and the higher education bubble is deflating, which it is. On the other hand, they've also been saying our situation is very strong. We have a $1.1 billion endowment. The guys at City Journal asked me, how is it that they have to cut these small programs, with this endowment? My brother is an economist at Wabash College. He looked at the numbers, and he said, you guys are running operating deficits, sure, but your net assets are outstanding. You do not have financial trouble. So my point is, students want to get degrees in health sciences, exercise science, nursing, things like this, we're really focusing on that. Go to Northeastern State University in Oklahoma, tuition like $6,000. Go to Oklahoma State or OU University. That's maybe $10,000, okay, for in-state students. We're charging $41,698.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I wanted to get to, is sort of the fraud that's being run on the students too. If you want VOTEC, fine, but you don't have to pay $41,000 a year to get it.
And furthermore, if you go to OU, which is a major university, they've got all the programs that we've cut, and they've got everything. They got more. So and actually, students here. I mean, we were told by the provost and the president, hey, these programs, only 6% of the students major in these subjects. But we've had an incredible outpouring of students. There's a Facebook group opposing this with 1.6 thousand members. And I can't tell you how many engineering students have gotten up and said, I minored in music. I minored in theater. I majored in philosophy along with my computer science degree. And by the way, we also have a petition, if your listeners are interested, on change.org. It's got 5,000 signatures now. But the administration's not budging, right? And incidentally, they bought this plan off the shelf. I got an email from a guy at McDaniel College in Maryland, and he says, we read your true commitment, which is the name of this restructuring. We read the document. You guys plagiarized from us because word for word it's the same thing.
Cookie cutter. Because
yeah,
one of the points you make too, and this is sort of the same point that I make about K through 12 education all the time, particularly in Chicago, is the whole system. It's not set up for the students; it's set up for the adults in the system, the teachers, the administrators, the bureaucracy. And you make that point about Tulsa.
That's exactly right. And I have to tell you, they talk about transparency. The data is totally opaque, okay? So we can't tell, even from the audits. and I've read the yearly audits and so forth, we can't tell how much they spend on administration. I can tell you the following numbers. 2017 to 2018, they spent $91 million and change on the academic side. Okay, that's obvious from the audit. Everything else is $113 million. How much is administration? Not broken out. How much is athletics? Not broken out. I can tell you, however, that another part of the audit does indicate that the athletics program lost almost $15 million last year.
Ever since Bill Self left. Jacob Howland, McFarland Professor of Philosophy, past chair of the Department of Philosophy and Religion at the University of Tulsa. His piece on the University of Tulsa, which is really illuminating, as you heard him talk about, this is happening at universities around the country, so it could be one coming to a student near you, like a kid in your household. Inside the Academic Destruction of the University of Tulsa at city-journal.org. Check it out. Jacob, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much for giving me a voice.
And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
This is the morning show more Chicago radio listeners are choosing. This is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560.